taking all the classes that the therapists were in because I did want to be an actual psychotherapist at one point, and life took me in a different path. But I've taken like a lot of the classes and trainings, and fortunately, I've been able to do that. And I am an emotional freedom technique practitioner. I am a cycle breaking mom to three daughters. I have a 21-year-old, 18-year-old, and an 11-year-old. And I'm a trauma informed life coach for moms who also want to become cycle breakers. So I am on Instagram at Safiya, Safiya underscore the cycle breaking mom. Okay.
For those who may or may not know this, what is a cycle breaking mom?
Yeah. It's a mother that basically decides that maybe the way they were raised and the patterns maybe that they saw growing up and that they are seeing in themselves, that they don't want to do that anymore because that's not serving their kids. And maybe they are having guilt. I think that's like a big sign where there's guilt. Like, this doesn't feel right. I don't like the way I'm responding. I don't like the way I'm making my kids feel. I want to do something different. So that's what a cycle breaking mom is. And I fell into it by accident. Like, it is actually like my purpose. It was one of those things where I'm praying and said, okay, in 2020, I'm like, okay, God, like, what's my purpose? Right. And then I kind of unfolded into the cycle breaking thing, but it started with what, any questions before I just kind of go, because you asked me that. Anything coming up for you before I go on
No, no,
my,
like I said
okay.
before, you can continue talking because
Okay.
I'm learning because I know sometimes like when I look at my own situation, I know some of the cycles that my parents went through.
Mhm.
I wasn't raised with without my mother and my father, so there's that
Mhm.
cycle as well.
Mhm.
So once you explain it to our audience, I can definitely include and pull from that information. So,
Mhm.
Sophia, you're good to go, madam. Go ahead.
Okay, okay, all right. So for me, it started with um me being in so much pain um in my 20s. Um almost like almost like I don't know if I can continue like this. Like, this is it. This is not it. Like, it just was so much pain, and I couldn't understand why. Because for me, and which is interesting, um, when people, hear about, trauma, because a lot of people who are breaking cycles, maybe they experienced trauma growing up. And for me, because there's something called the adverse childhood experiences study. And for me, my score was just like a one, right? So I didn't understand, how can I be in so much pain? Like, what's happening, right? And I discovered later, which I will talk about, but I was in a lot of pain. So I kind of, it started out where I started off with medication, taking medication because I had like severe anxiety. And then I had to come off the medication after I got pregnant um, with the first child, which actually is not a 21-year-old. It was another child. I ended up miscarrying, but I had to come off the medication. And so then I was like, because the medication is like a band-aid, right? And it did its job, like it quieted things. So I had to come off this medication. And so then I'm left just like with anxiety and depression. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So just praying every day, just suffering. Ended up getting pregnant again with the oldest now. And so I was okay, navigating that. And then after I had her, I remember thinking like, okay, I've arrived. Like, as far as checking boxes, like, okay, I did everything right. Like I went to school, I got my degree, I have good credit, like I have a home, I got married, like, all the things, right? And I'm just like, I have this beautiful baby. And I'm just like, gosh, I just feel horrible. Like, right. But I always just kept praying, just prayer, prayer, prayer. Like, I'm in so much pain. Like, please help me. And one night, and this is back when infomercials used to come on. And one night, I was watching an infomercial and they were talking about attacking anxiety and depression. And I thought, and then they offered a money back guarantee. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to get this and see, and I probably will send it back. But it started to shift things for me. It was like a at home home study, like cognitive behavioral therapy program or whatever. So things started to shift because I did have what is called stinking thinking. Things started to shift or whatever for me. Um, but I'm gonna tell you, trying to constantly like manage your thoughts on stuff can be exhausting. And so I was fortunate enough to then learn about EFT, emotional freedom techniques, and I got trained in that. And it was like, oh, like now you can bring up what's bothering you. You can tap on these points on the body and just shift things, right? And so that was when I got into like EFT, and then I got trained in it, and so then that was helpful. So basically, I kind of been on this journey since um about 30 or so on this self-development journey. Okay. So having kids though brings up whole other stuff in you. Like you can be doing your self-development, but then when you have kids, a lot of triggers and stuff, a lot of stuff that maybe you did experience and you seeing it in them, like it just brings up a lot, right? And for me, I was a people pleaser, like passive aggressive, all of that. So now I have kids and they're getting older, and especially my middle daughter. Oh my goodness, she's fiery, right? And she would say some stuff and I would lose my stuff. Just like, I mean, just out of control with her, right? And I didn't like the way I was responding, but I didn't know what else to do. And like a lot of parents, you start to think, well, maybe it's the kid. Like the kid is the problem, right? And so we would be battling and back and forth. But I remember as I'm on my self-development journey and things are constantly unfolding and I'm working towards being a better me, it was like, no, it's not the kid. Like it's my stuff. It's like me losing control because out in the world, I don't know how to speak up for myself. People have taken advantage or whatever. And I have this kid and they're telling me no. And that just brought up a lot in me, right? That just, so, and because she's younger, I mean, smaller than me, then I can just take my power out on her. Now, fortunately, a lot of people wouldn't think fortunately, but fortunately, she wasn't playing that because she's a rebel. So my oldest daughter, she was like, okay, I know how to do it with her. I know how to do. Okay. She gets, agitated during these times with this. I'm gonna be a pleaser too. So she know how to like please me. And so she's like the golden child. And then the middle one is like, mm-mm. Right. So I had to like figure things out because it was bad. Like, I mean, things so bad. I'm like embarrassed of some of the situations that I had got in with her, who's a kid, and I'm like battling, right? So her younger sister came along, and then things got really, really bad. So I on my journey, like I said, just constantly taking classes, constantly trying to be better. I discovered something. I don't know if you're familiar with like shadow work. Okay. Yeah. So she's like my shadow. So it was like, oh, So when I'm battling with her, I'm battling with me. See, because when I was a kid, I was disrespectful and I was rebellious. And I was told, my mom would say, I hope you have a daughter as she grows up to be just like you, right? So basically, that's letting me know that that part of you I don't like. So I kind of had suppressed that, you know, and the part of me that was pleasing, because I was the oldest daughter. So the part of me that's pleasing and, you know, with my mom, that part was loved and accepted and, celebrated. But that ugly part of me, mm-mm, no, that was not okay. So now here I am with this daughter that's displaying that. So when I learned that, things really like shifted, and I'm like, oh, that's me. So once I learned to like embrace that part of me, then I saw her differently. Our relationship started to shift. And fortunately, this was the time where she was maybe in junior high, and she was starting to struggle socially and emotionally. And because I started doing the work and I started to shift, she came to me and she said, I think something's wrong with me mentally. I think, she just, maybe she was having some depression. And she said, I don't feel like I'm likable. And I feel like nobody likes me, including me, her mother, and that you like my sister better. Now, she was right. She was right. I did not, right? But at the time, because I thought she was the problem. But I was able to kind of, you know, navigate that with her, how she was feeling, and started to affirm her and let her know that she is lovable. And we had this one situation where it was a friend of hers, and she hadn't heard from them, and she was feeling anxious. What people would call, she had more of like an anxious attachment style. And so she hadn't heard from the friend, and she felt abandoned, and she felt like, what happened? Did I do something wrong? She was crying. And I was sitting right in this chair, and I put her on my lap, and she was a big girl. And I rocked her as she cried. And I told her, you are lovable. You're good. All the things that the kid needs to hear that unfortunately she didn't hear when she was younger because of, you know, our dynamics. And so I was able to help her navigate through that, and develop, she no longer has that like anxious attachment, and just develop more of a secure attachment as far as with me and then with other people. So what I found is me doing my own work is kind of what led me, and trying to get out of my own pain is what led me to do something different with my children, and especially her. She was like the wake up call. And just I don't know. See, how many years has it been? I think it's been about 5 years, 4 years that I got into like trauma, and did like training on trauma. And then that's when I started to, learn that what trauma really is. Because like, remember when I said before, oh, I just had one. Well, there's something called, well, first let me say what trauma is. Trauma isn't just like this big event. People think of trauma and it's like these major event, you know, that disrupts someone's life. But trauma is an experience. It's what happens inside, whether something is too much too fast or not enough for a long time. Okay. So just kind of learning about what trauma really is, and that there is a such thing as developmental trauma and relational trauma. And so parents can, inadvertently be traumatizing their children just from their own unresolved trauma that they're carrying. And so that's what I discovered, that for me, the reason why I was so in so much pain and why things just, just weren't looking good for me is because I had two traumatized parents. They had high ACE scores, adverse childhood experience, and they had a lot of adverse childhood experiences. And I was a product of that. And so it affects you in every way, because if you carrying the unresolved trauma, then the way you show up in the world um is like, I'm not okay. Like, I'm not okay inside, and it's going to affect you in every area of your life. So I was a product of that intergenerational trauma. So just learning about trauma and what that is, and even what how I was with especially my middle daughter, um I was traumatizing her. That's trauma, having a parent who um is going back and forth battling with you and doesn't like you, and that's a trauma. That's a relational trauma. And it affects the nervous system, because when we our nervous systems are meant to be in what is called a ventral vagal state, and that means like safety, connection, right? And so if you're not getting that, okay, and your parent is yelling at you, ostracizing you, fighting with you, your nervous system is going to be in fight or flight. And if you don't have a safe person to get you back to that ventral state, you stay in fight or flight. And then, some people can't stay in, like for me, couldn't stay in fight or flight for that long. So they go into like a freeze state, a dorsal vagal state. And that's where you see a lot of physical problems. I had chronic health issues, right? So it's just a bigger thing than what people know. Um, so I'm gonna just stop for a moment and see if you got anything for me, because
I do. When you
okay.
mentioned, first and foremost, let me say that it takes courage to understand that, because people in general probably walking around traumatized to the gills,
Mhm,
right? And they just don't know, because the way I look at trauma, Sophia, is that think about it like a jacket.
mhm,
You put on that jacket, right? On your left shoulder, you have trauma because you're a woman or a man. On your right shoulder, because of your religion. On your chest, because of your skin color. On your right side, because of your childhood experience. If all these patches on this jacket called the trauma jacket. You've been walking around with that, wearing that jacket day after day, month after month, year after year. There comes a time in your life where you say that I want better. Maybe you became a parent. Maybe you've entered a relationship. Maybe you have stardust in your eyes and you're just in love and you want to do it for all the right reasons, right? The problem is when you have built your identity off of that trauma, how likely are you going to be off to take off that coat, that jacket?
mhm,
It's going to
mhm,
be a struggle.
mhm,
You don't know who you are without the trauma, and worse yet, you don't know what your body looks like without the trauma jacket on, because you've never seen underneath that jacket.
mhm,
So when you're able to identify that and you're doing the shadow work and you're like, there's parts of me that I don't like.
mhm.
And there's parts of a lot of people I don't like, let me tell you, okay? That's easier to do. It's easier to identify in other people what you don't like. But how about standing in front of the mirror and saying that, what is it about me that I don't like?
Mhm.
Why do you think some people struggle with that first step in saying, maybe I am the architect of my misery and maybe I am the monster in my story?
I think a lot of times people may think they might not want to go there, because they might think that this just popped in my head, that no, like, I love myself, I like myself, like, I'm not about to say anything negative about myself, right? Because that will bring up some shame, right? And shame was a big one, right? And especially like growing up, the way a lot of people were parented was shame. Shame on you, shame on you, shame on you. So if I like admit that there's a problem, that brings up shame. And whoa, mm-mm, I don't want to touch that. Like, I really think that that's one of the big ones. Like, just not even wanting to go there. Yeah.
How big do you think that is for people?
Oh, hello. Like that's um there's it's more people that are that way than not. And because I was reading something recently, and it was saying, back in the day, like I don't know, I think I'm a Gen Z, I think they call it. But and my mom's like, their day is like baby boomers, and I don't know what the was before that was called, but you know, before success was just there's a roof over your head, you're fed, you're growing, and you know how to behave in public. Okay. And that's it. Right. Like people just didn't have the information that's out now. And it's out there now. Still a lot of people don't have it or know it. That's why I want to educate and let people know, because a lot of people don't know. But if that's the way you were raised, and in my mom's day, it was like kids are seen and not heard. So they're gonna carry that with them into their parenting. So it was just, a lot of shaming, a lot of hitting, they just didn't know. So, and that's gonna cause a person to not, how can you self-reflect? Like, where would that come from? It's not gonna just come through the ethers. Like, I didn't know at one point. I thought my daughter was the problem at one point, right? I didn't know. Now, fortunately, like I said, because this is my purpose and a part of my purpose, I was given that information. It came to me. But a lot of people don't know that. So it's very common for that not to happen. Yeah.
You mentioned shame, and that is a tough one because it could be shame that am I good enough
Mm-hmm.
to be a mom? Am I good enough to be a dad?
Yeah.
Am I good enough to have children that are going to be successful? Because sometimes I think we get into the self-defeating narrative
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, I didn't have the best childhood. Now that I'm a parent, maybe I'm not good enough to be a parent because I wasn't good enough to be a child because the love was so
Mm.
conditional.
Yeah. I've heard that
Right. And
before.
then, exactly. And these are the voices inside of our heads. It may not be what other people are saying, and it damn
Mm-hmm.
well may be what people are actually saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to shame and guilt now, what role do you think that plays in our value and our worthiness of ourselves?
Mm. So rephrase that for me so I can know exactly. I'm not really following what you're asking. So try that again.
Absolutely. So when someone is feeling shame,
Yeah.
right? Because they grew up in a difficult childhood that they didn't see the type of love that they wanted. So they
Yes.
always held that inside because for a lot of
Yeah.
people, their parents are on the God throne. They can do no wrong,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you're
Yes.
that child that their parents did a lot of wrong. That
Yes.
experience of that shame,
Yes.
how does that impact how we feel when it comes from a self-worth perspective?
Mm. Yeah, I think it definitely affects us. But some people still, I still don't think they have that introspection to even know there's a self-worth issue or to know what's really going on. It just shows up in maybe workaholism, uh, substances, like being addicted to stuff. Like I think that a lot of people don't even know to say, I have issues with self-worth. It's just because they don't have the uh what would I want to say, language for what's happening internally, because they don't know. No one ever, like, if you don't have someone to hold space for your internal world, you don't get that. And so I think a lot of people don't even have the introspection to say, I have low self-worth. I think it just shows up in the partners that they choose. Maybe a soul sucking job, different ways like that. That's kind of how that shows up. Just don't think it's as common for people to have the awareness that they have going on.
That's tough, right? Because if you don't, you see the man, the woman date partners that aren't necessarily the best for them.
Mm-hmm.
And when they look back, let's say you started dating in your 20s, like a lot of us, teenage years, maybe even, you get to a point where you're 30 and you're 40 and you're approaching midlife. You
Mm-hmm.
probably have a car. You
Mm-hmm.
probably have a decent to a good job or
Mm-hmm.
career, and you've graduated some type of schooling, right? At that point now, you may be thinking in your mind, 20 years of this? Because time goes by like that, especially when you're searching for something that you don't even know where to find it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what you have is, how am I going to make this work? Because there was a woman that I work with, I used to coach. She would tell me, Train, like love is for someone in their 20s. She no longer believed in it.
Wow.
And I started
Mm.
working with her in her 60s. So she went 40 years believing that love had escaped her. I said, love
Wow.
doesn't, I'm like,
Mm.
the idea of love and the benefits of love, that doesn't expire. The
Mm.
love in your relationship may. I fall
Mm.
out of love with this person. Let's go our separate ways. I don't hate him or her. We're just not compatible anymore. That
Mm.
may expire.
Right.
But the idea and the benefits of love, absolutely not. So there was time that we had to rework, reframe, and rewire her thinking,
Mm.
right? Because she didn't, if you don't think you can obtain something, you will never do it because now you don't even know where to look for it because you
Mm-hmm.
stopped looking.
Mm-hmm.
So I share that because she had a lot of shame, she had a lot of guilt because of her childhood experiences, like you mentioned, right? Because of the ACEs, because of the adverse childhood experience. She had a lot of that. When she finally decided that she wanted something better,
Mm-hmm.
Sophia, was, I don't want to live the life that I'm living currently in my later years.
Mm-hmm.
She had a moment, she hit that crossroad, right? You can go left, which is something
Mm-hmm.
new, kind of scary. You know how the brain works, right? It's like, I don't
Yep.
know about that path,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Or you can go right, which is familiar, which is the chaos, which is the drama, which is the
Mm-hmm.
people pleasing, but you survived it, so your life has gotten comfortable to it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
What I find a lot of people forget is that path to the left. That's a path that maybe you have a few people, because some people won't make that journey with you.
No.
How lonely do you think that journey is when someone is trying to heal their past?
It's so lonely. I would tell you from experience, it is, but there are people out there that probably the people that were in one's life before the journey. Because I remember when I started getting into my trainings and stuff, they were like, just to warn you, like an elevator, people are gonna start getting off. So just want to let you know that. Right now, maybe some people might rise to the occasion, um, but that's kind of rare, but not impossible. Sometimes that does happen, but it can be lonely. The good news is though, there are people that are doing it work too, and you just have to find those people. But your original people, they might start to fall off. Yeah,
That's so sad.
I know.
That
Trust
is
me.
sad. Yeah.
Oh,
How
trust
how
me.
did you how did you deal with that?
um, Trying to hold on and it becoming impossible to not. And yeah, not easy at all. Um, I don't even have an answer for it except trying to hold on and then not working and then saying, okay, well, that's not gonna work. um, and choosing, to move in the direction that my soul, which is a higher version, wants to go. So, yeah.
So when, for you now, if you look at your experiences and some of the people you've come in contact with, what do you think are maybe some of the common obstacles that people face in their life when it comes to trauma?
Everything, every life area. um, it really does affect every area because when we do experience it, our nervous systems get dysregulated, and then we're now living it in a survival mode. And so it's kind of hard to access the highest version of you when your nervous system still thinks that a tiger is chasing you. So it's like the tiger never stops chasing you once you experience it. And it's not the so much the trauma itself that's the biggest issue. It's a Dr. Peter Levine. He talks about this. He's a trauma expert. And he said it's without having an empathetic witness to help you to process through it. And so a lot of people don't have that because a lot of times the parents are the ones that's inflicting it. So who's the safe person, right? Um, so if your nervous system is always running from the tiger, it can't really access that highest version of yourself. And so, pretty much all the areas, life areas will be affected in some way. That's what I've seen. Yeah.
We spoke about trauma being passed down to children. We spoke about
Yes.
breaking that cycle. We also discussed how it shows up in our romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the romance side,
Mm-hmm.
how does the trauma of the parent, both parents, single parents, whatever the dynamic is, how does that trauma that's being passed down impact the relationships of the children once they become adults and start having romance for themselves?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it does so much. I think about so my middle daughter. Let's just take her for a moment. If I never would have done the work and healed that with her, she in the future, um, in as far as romantic partners, she would probably choose, not probably, she would choose people that mimic what's familiar because our nervous systems go with familiar. And it's like, I know this. I want different. The person could want different, but the nervous system was like, I'm sorry, but I had one of my trainings. My teacher said it's like the nervous system says, okay, let's see what we have. Let's go through romantic love. Let's go through let's see what we have through the database. Romantic, oh, abandonment, disappointment, right? Okay, yeah. All right, so let's call in those individuals that will do that and call it love, call it chemistry, magnetism. And that's what and that's kind of how that works, unfortunately, until a person, heals. If not, then, I mean, I have to say there's always exceptions to the rules. I had this client before, she had been married 5 times, and the fifth time, um, it was good, right? Like kept trying, kept trying, kept trying. The fifth time was good. But I do want to say that helped, but she still was left with anxiety and depression and all these other issues, right? So it wasn't like she was thriving. She just finally, after so many tries, finally did get somebody. And then the sad part is, here's the sad part, that he passed away early. Like, so it's still a form of abandonment, right? Because he had trauma and chronic health issues and he ended up passing away. Like, man, right? So that's kind of, what that looks like. It's like if you want to thrive, you have to actually address those things So,
It's like the child dating, it's like the child with the alcoholic or emotionally unavailable parents dating the alcoholic and emotionally unavailable person,
of course,
right?
100%.
I make this joke with people that similar to like school every June, I'm like a victim graduates every June,
Mm,
right? Because sometimes you've been oppressed so long that you no longer look for the hero, you just look for the oppressor because you're comfortable with it.
mm, yeah,
Right. What do you
yeah.
think are maybe some of the ways that people can identify that trauma is showing up in their partners and to make sure that they are either prepared for it or avoid it?
Mm. Yeah, I wish it was that easy because when you have trauma running in your system, red flags don't look like red flags. So the thing is, the first step to healing is to start to regulate the nervous system, get the nervous system out of survival. Like that's step one. So like when I kind of started, I took this holistic healing program and we started with working on regulating the nervous system. And it's just crazy because like as soon as I started that, folks already started falling off just for me regular, you know what I mean? Just for me like starting to regulate my nervous system. It's like, I guess, it's like you magnetize people in that match the unresolved trauma. So the first thing is to start to get that nervous system out of survival. And then, then there's the inner child work, like, working with that younger version of you. Like if you be the parent to them and you show them love and attention and all the things that they didn't get, now they have a new blueprint for love. So that's kind of how that works. So one has to do some healing, and it starts with the nervous system
When you mention it starts with the nervous system, why does it start with the nervous system?
because that's what's affected when we have trauma. It takes us out of that what is called a ventral vagal state. Ventral vagal state says I am safe, I'm connected, I'm good, all is well, right? And once you go out of that into fight or flight, or finally freeze, because you can't stay in fight or flight for too long. Some people can, it depends. But you're constantly running from tigers, constantly running from, and you can't, nothing can be optimal if you are in survival running from a tiger. It just can't. So that you got to calm things down first and get back to that. Show your system like, nope, there's no more danger. The trauma has passed. We're safe now. You have to start there.
When trauma enters the body, I know it shows up in different ways for different people. For example, someone could be so traumatized that instead of finding a safe place at home, they go into work and they work 12, 14, 16 hours. Now that trauma is showing up in their work ethic because now they're escaping it, but because they're putting their body through all these things, they may have pains in their arms, pains in their legs, they're stressed, they can't sleep, they're not eating properly, their health falls apart.
Yeah.
But then for some people, and I've seen this with a few people, something happens. They go from traumatized,
Mm-hmm.
now they went from feeling the trauma, now they're out there traumatizing others. Now they're giving out the
Yes.
trauma. Do you see
Yeah.
that as well? If so, why do you think that happens?
I think first of all, nervous systems are constantly reading each other. So some people may be worse than others. And I think depending on what they experience growing up, how bad it will be. But even even like with myself, um, because I was, brought up by two people whose nervous systems were in survival, your nervous system automatically inherits that of another. So if your nervous system is in this, and if a person is working like crazy all these out, it's getting worse. Like it starts to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, right? if you never bring in that safety. Okay. So now this person whose nervous system is pinging danger, every other nervous system that they come in contact with can be affected because of like mirror neurons. So that's kind of how that works. Like nervous system, like for me, I'm very sensitive. I know when somebody's nervous system isn't safe. I pick it up right away. Like, ooh. So nervous systems ping off other nervous systems. So just if you're a dysregulated person, other people are going to be affected by it. But then if you constantly get worse and you don't do anything about it, and depending on how you were raised, then it could be worse for the people around you. You know what I mean? To pick that up from you. So there's levels to that.
There's someone that I used to know. She went through a traumatic experience as maybe in her 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And she eventually married, and then it didn't work out. She married again, and then it didn't work out. And she's been single for a while. One of the ways that trauma shows up in her life is that the people, anyone that reminds her of her oppressor or the person who traumatized her,
Mm-hmm.
she would traumatize them. And
Mm-hmm.
she did this for years.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it came up is because I'm thinking she was traumatized in maybe a sexual way. So what she did is that she would find people that resembled
Mm-hmm.
whomever traumatized her,
Mm-hmm.
and she would be very disrespectful in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And she didn't catch this until someone just followed us of like, hey, why are you treating me this way? Like, I don't understand. I've been respectful, this and that. And then that's where she caught it. And that moment, she realized that she had become
Oh
just
yeah.
like her oppressor.
Yeah. You know, I heard this. This may be esoteric, but I remember one of my instructors, he said energy can never be destroyed. It just changes. Oh goodness, I don't want to butcher it. But basically, either you take on the energy of it or you get somebody and who's that way. But the energy of it never leaves until it's transmuted, I think he said. But yeah, energy can never be destroyed. It only takes different forms or something like that. So that's, and I said, oh, that makes sense because you do see that where either the person, because I know someone who had an alcoholic father and he was abusive and he terrorized the home, right? And this woman, married like a weaker man, and then she became the terrorizer to the weaker man. And then her children, though, ended up marrying somebody who was more like her father. Like that energy doesn't ever leave. You're not escaping it. It just keeps transforming until it gets transmuted. So I thought that was very interesting when he said that. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And I've seen that. So yeah.
It is scary to see because I wonder then, is it a conscious decision or a unconscious one?
Oh no, it's not conscious at all. It's unconscious. It's energy doing its job. Yeah, but no, it's not conscious. I mean, I'm not gonna say that no person has ever said I'm gonna go. Maybe some people have. I'm going to destroy others' lives the way mine was destroyed, but most people don't think like that. It's just a subconscious thing that's happening.
But if you think about it, right? Like I agree. But if you think about it, what's one of the easiest ways to elevate yourself without actually elevating yourself? Bring
Mm-hmm.
someone down, right? Like let's say you have two ladders. So you have one ladder. You and I are on the same rung of that ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's facing sideways. I'm on the left side of it, you're on the right side of it.
Mm-hmm.
For me to be above you on that ladder, either I can climb up or I
Mm-hmm.
can bring you down.
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think for a lot of people, unfortunately, they try to treat their trauma with vengeance.
Mm. Yeah.
Let me feel temporary good, right? Let me take away Sophia's job because my job was taken away. Now I feel
Mm.
good because I'm getting my vengeance. It's very fleeting.
Mhm.
Tomorrow I'm gonna have to cause some other chaos. Maybe I have to blow up. Let me not use the word blow up these days.
Okay.
Maybe I have to maybe I have to cause harm to someone else, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe I have to do these other things. Especially I used to date someone and she used to complain that some of the men that she dated, they because she would date men, let's say out of her city, and she would say that they didn't ever come to her city to be with her. She always had to go out there,
Mm.
right? And the guys she dated before me and the guys she dated after me, I caught it that you do realize that now your ex and me, now we're coming to you and you're spending less time coming to us. You've
Mm.
become what you used to complain about. And she was like, oh my God.
Mm.
But she rationalized it in her head because she was like, well, I'm going to save money this way. If you guys come out this way, we're saving money because we can stay at her place or whatever the case is.
Mhm.
I'm like, we got places too. My house is 3,000 square foot. Come on now. I got a queen size bed here too, right? You know, I can get some silk sheets. What else you
Yeah,
want? You want some new
yeah.
paint? You know what I mean? I can't speak for him, but I can speak for me. I got a little bit of money too, okay? Right? But I share that because we rationalize it, we justify it, and then we minimize it. It's not
Mm.
that bad. Not thinking that the person that maybe traumatized us, in their mind, they're thinking
The
it's
same
not that
thing.
bad.
The same thing. Hmm.
Right?
It's
So
very
when it
interesting.
comes to, yeah, so when it comes to understanding why we get trapped in the trauma and we just continue that cycle as we touched on earlier, why do you think some people are stuck in the trauma cycle?
They stuck in it because if they haven't done any healing, then it's not leaving. I'm sorry. Like it's just that simple because or complicated, I guess, because it's not easy. It's not an easy journey. Some days I'm just like, gosh, why did this have to be my purpose? This is a lot. But it's definitely worth it. Especially through my children. Um, but yeah, that's the only way. And I would say at least start with self-awareness. Like, and you have some people though, and what I'm thinking is depending on their childhoods and how much shame, how much maybe physical abuse they experience, it's harder for them to even have any self-awareness. I've discovered that the more people were raised by authoritarian households, I don't know what it is, but those are the ones that are the most difficult. And I'm just like thinking, like, think about little you though. Like, what would little you have? But those are the ones that are like, oh, they talk about gentle parenting and those are for softies and that type of language. So first thing is to have some self-awareness and to know that you want to do something different, like have that intention, and then things will start to unfold if you like start there. And it's not going to be easy. The brain doesn't like change. It's not
No,
going to be
it
easy.
doesn't. So how can
Mm-mm.
someone then create a safe space and a safe community for that change?
How can someone? Well, they would have to find safe people, probably like that's trauma informed, that nervous systems are safe, because if not, um like I said, I know for myself I can pick up a nervous system. I can tell, like, even if a person tries to pretend or be fake, I can feel it, right? But you know finding people whose nervous systems are regulated and safe, um, different communities, trauma informed, some therapy, myself, um, that's kind of where one would begin. Someone that has done the work or doing the work, um, because we get traumatized in relationships, so we also heal in relationships. And you can't even fully, totally heal without um, others. Like you can go so far, and then relationships is kind of where it takes you to give you what is called a disconfirming experience. Like once upon a time, relationships were unsafe, and this is and this person in front of me is safe. They're seeing me, they're hearing me, they're validating me. Whoa, like that is so like for the nervous system. So that's important.
That's a big one, right? Because I'm all about having the right people around you and
Mm-hmm.
then building that community around the right people. One
Mm-hmm.
of the struggles that I see, not only for myself, but some of the women that I've worked with, is that once they start making the change, they start to see which person isn't healthy for them anymore, and they
Mm-hmm.
struggle with letting them go because
Mm-hmm.
they would say that I know Johnny for 15 years, I known Teresa for
Mm-hmm.
20 years, right? And then they start to doubt themselves because now they may look at a Sophia, they may look at a train and say, I was good enough for these people at my lowest point or when my life wasn't where I wanted to be. Now
Mm-hmm.
that I'm transitioning to a different person, a new identity, a healthier version,
Mm-hmm.
what if I'm not worthy of the people that
Mm-hmm.
are further along on that journey? Do you see some people falling back to old habits because they have the same people around them?
Yeah, that does happen. But then it's like once a person has started to do some work and experience something different, then it becomes more painful. So then eventually it might take some time, but eventually, because it's like, whoa, like I used to tolerate this before. Like, hmm, this doesn't feel good. And once you've experienced safety, then eventually you can go back to that because it becomes painful. And I'm speaking for myself too. So, yeah.
Let me ask you, Sophia, one final question before I let you go today. I want to give you three wishes for this question. What are three things you wish people knew about the benefits of breaking the cycle of trauma for their children and why?
Mm. Um, gosh, it's going to make such a big difference in whether they are thriving or not. And we all want what's best for our kids. So if you want your kids to actually thrive and not struggle with anxiety, depression, because it's so common nowadays, anxiety and depression, especially with screens and stuff, which is already dysregulating. So anxiety and depression and addictions and all of those types of things, because those are the things that kids are struggling with. My kids come back and tell me. And so if you want your kid to be okay and you want them to be thriving and be the best version, so that is so important. Also, I know people want their kids to have good relationships in the future and their grandkids be okay, because that's the thing about the generational trauma. It doesn't stop until someone says it ends with us. Literally, I'm not even kidding. Like it doesn't leave. And I remember being at the movie theater. It was a movie called what was that? What was it called? It Ends With Us. Was that the name of the movie? I think it was so much craziness around it with Justin Baldoni and this other Blake Lively. But the movie itself, I remember being in that movie. I mean, being at the theater and hearing that and tears coming, right? And so when you're crying, it's like either your soul is like, that's it, right? And so it ends with us, right? So if you want your grandkids to be okay and not struggle, then it's necessary. And then you said three, right? For your kids. Let's see. For them to be okay, for grandkids to be okay, for I think for even for yourself, like I believe that all of us as humans, our purpose is to be the best version of ourselves. And really, that's the best gift that we can give. Like my kids, like I have a teen, like my 18-year-old, that respects me so much. Like I don't have the typical, and I got daughters, right? And you know, people say about daughters, like teen daughters, right? They they respect me so much, right? They have so much respect for me because they see the work that I'm doing and they want to be like me. That's a blessing.